verse 7 and 8. It says, Beloved, for some reason I have a translation written down I just don't like. I'm going to switch over. 1 John 4, verse 7 starts off, Beloved, let us love one another, for love is of God. And everyone that loveth is born of God and knoweth God. And he that loveth not knoweth not God, for God is love. For God is love. So I was thinking about these things, and how we are to love. And I was thinking about the stranger. I've heard a lot about how, as Bible-believing, God-fearing people, we should love the stranger. It's been in the political news a lot lately. So let's read this. Let's go to Deuteronomy 10:16. He's calling out his people. He says, Circumcise, therefore, again, this is Deuteronomy 10:16. Circumcise, therefore, this foreskin of your heart, and be no more stiff-necked. Okay. How do you circumcise the foreskin of your heart? Well, this is a surgery that can't be done by man, right? This is one done without hands. So it's metaphorical. And so this is when it's saying, look, soften your heart, heed to his word, and obey. He says in verse 17, For the Lord your God is God of gods and Lord of lords, a great God, a mighty, a terrible, which regardeth not persons nor taketh rewards. So he is a just judge, right? You can't bribe him. He is above them all, and he does not heed to bribes. He doth execute the judgment of the fatherless and widow, and loveth the stranger in giving him food and raiment. So he provides. He says, Love ye therefore the stranger, for ye were strangers in the land of Egypt. If you go to chapter 14, same book, Deuteronomy chapter 14, verse 28, it says, this is a commandment. It says, At the end of 3 years, thou shalt bring forth all the tithe of thine increase the same year, and shall lay it up within thy gates. And the Levite, and then it explains why the Levite, because he hath no part nor inheritance with you, because remember, they did not get an inheritance of the land. It says, And the Levite and the stranger and the fatherless and the widow, which are within thy gates, shall come and shall eat and be satisfied, that the Lord thy God may bless thee in all the work of thine hand which thou doest. It's an interesting thing here, because he is saying at the end of these 3 years, when you bring forth this tithe of everything, unto whom the Levite, the stranger, the fatherless, the widow, which are within thy gates, and then they come and they eat and are satisfied, then you will be blessed. Right? Because of what? Because of obedience. Right? When you obey him and you give generously, you will be blessed in return. Strangers within the gates, and we're to love them. Chapter 26 and 9 says, And he hath brought us into this place, and hath given us this land, even a land that flows with milk and honey. And now, behold, I have brought the first fruits of the land, which thou, O Lord, hast given me. And thou shalt set it before the Lord thy God, and worship before the Lord thy God. And thou shalt rejoice in every good thing which the Lord thy God hath given unto thee and unto thy house, thou and the Levite and the stranger that is among you. Now just notice who it is that's giving everything. It's not the Lord of the house, it's the Lord of us all, right? That is true provision, comes from above. But then when it comes down, it goes to the one who is over all of this, and they are to disperse. So we see this in verse 12. When thou hast made an end of tithing all the tithes of thine increase the 3rd year, which is the year of tithing, and hast given it unto the Levite, the stranger, the fatherless, and the widow, that they may eat within thy gates and be filled, thou shalt say before the Lord thy God, I have brought away the hallowed things out of my house, or the set apart things, which is you're setting apart the tithe or the tenth, right? these set apart things, and also have given them unto the Levite, and unto the stranger, and to the fatherless, and to the widow, according to all thy commandments which thou hast commanded me. And I have not transgressed thy commandments, neither have I forgotten them. I have not eaten thereof in my mourning, neither have I taken away aught thereof for any unclean use, nor aught thereof for the dead. But I have hearkened to the voice of the Lord my God, and have done according to all that thou hast commanded me. Look down from thy holy habitation, from heaven, and bless thy people Israel in the land which thou hast given us, as thou swarest unto our fathers, a land that floweth with milk and honey. This day the Lord thy God hath commanded thee to do these statutes and commandments and judgments, that thou shalt therefore keep and do them with all thine heart and with all thy soul, that thou hast avouched the Lord this day to be thy God, and to walk in his ways, and to keep his statutes and his commandments and his judgments, and to hearken unto his voice, to obey, right? Verse 18, and the Lord hath avouched thee this day to be a peculiar people, or a treasured people, as he hath promised thee, and that thou shouldest keep all his commandments. Yes, you are a treasure unto him, but you also have to be obedient, keep all his commandments, right? It's not for nothing. And then verse 19 says, and to make thee high above all nations which he hath made, in praise, in name, and in honor, that thou mayest be a holy people unto the Lord thy God, as he has spoken. So, the question is, does this mean that all the widows of the world and all the orphans of the world are the responsibility of the righteous people? I got to know? I'd say he's right. It's no. It's not true. It's not true. There was a caveat, which you may not have caught, but he said, the stranger, the Levite, the orphan, and the widow within thy gates. Okay? A lot of people don't catch this, right? But there is an area of which you have responsibility. We cannot be responsible for every person in the whole world. You just can't do it. But you do have responsibility for those that are around you within your gates. And so he continues to remind the Israelites, you also were strangers in the land of Egypt. And for this, you need to love the stranger. And don't forget, you were a stranger in the land of Egypt. So for everyone who's come to America or to any other nation, does it automatically mean they're a stranger that we are to then support? I heard a no. Does it mean that every stranger that comes into the land we are to support? I agree. It's a no. But how do I get there? Why? Why would I say no? He's reminding them, don't forget, you were strangers in the land of Egypt. Okay? Now let's go to the book of Genesis. The book of Genesis, chapter 45. And we're at chapter 45, you're going to understand that there's been all the storyline between Joseph and his brothers and them coming, trying to find, food because there was a famine, and all these things have already transpired. They've already discovered each other's identity, and all of that has happened. And so here in Genesis chapter 45, verse 16, it says, and the fame thereof was heard in Pharaoh's house, saying, Joseph's brethren are come. And it pleased Pharaoh well, and his servants. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, say unto thy brethren, this do ye, lade your beast, and go and get you into the land of Canaan, and take your father and your households, and come unto me. And I will give you the good of the land of Egypt, and ye shall eat the fat of the land. They did not come to Egypt uninvited. Pharaoh himself did the invitation. Joseph clearly wanted his brother and his father and them to come, but Pharaoh himself did the invitation to welcome them to the land and promise them the fat of the land. So when you invite into your gates the Levite, the stranger, the fatherless, the widow, you're obligating yourself to their care. Okay? You're saying you're going to provide for them with the same provision that you have been given. And when you feast, you will ensure that they feast with you. Let's go to Matthew chapter 25. It's a whole lot of verses to get to the point of we're supposed to love one another, right? But let's go to Matthew chapter 25 and verse 41. Yeshua speaking. Again, Matthew 25, verse 41. Then shall he say, so it's a future prophetic, then shall he say also unto them on the left hand, depart from me, ye cursed, into everlasting fire, prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungered, and you gave me no meat. I was thirsty, and you gave me no drink. I was a stranger, and you took me not in, naked, and you clothed me not, sick, and in prison, and you visited me not. Then shall they also answer him, saying, Lord, when saw we thee hungered, or athirst, or a stranger, or naked, or sick, or in prison, and did not minister unto thee? Then shall he answer unto them, saying, Verily I say unto you, inasmuch as you did it not to one of the least of these, you did it not to me. And these shall go away into everlasting punishment, but the righteous into life eternal. We're to love each other. We're to demonstrate love. We're to give to those who are within our gates. We're to provide, right? Influence those around you. And stop imagining that the task is so great that you cannot do it, right? This is where, we get into like the whole argument around, climate change and stuff. It's like such a massive problem that they will always be with us and just eternally throw money at it to the benefit of those who receive the money, really, right? But no, this is something you can make a difference in, right? You can control what someone is benefiting. That meal right then, you invite them to your table. You give them food, and they eat at their own table. You have affected them right then, right there, within your gates, those that are around you. And this is a definite, clear way that you can show love, not just to each other, but to the Father himself. Because as you do it unto those, you're doing it unto him. And he's telling you, it matters. Life eternal or punishment everlasting. Show love. Love one another. Can you say amen? Amen. Okay. We're going to stop that there and invite all the children between the ages of 3 and 8 to go into the room next door to Kaylin. And thank you, Kaylin, for your efforts today. I really appreciate it. Yep. Yes. Foreign missions. Sure. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Even worse than that, I've seen the same thing, and it would be people sitting in the pew that had a need, and they weren't being helped. And those were the ones who were showing up, who had been part of the body this whole time. And because they were in need instead of giving, then they were not being loved. They were not being loved in any way. Because suddenly you're a burden? Like, that's not how this works. It's not how this works. Yeah, and praise God. Thank God it doesn't work that, or shouldn't work that way. I'm grateful that we don't have that mindset. I'm glad. I really am. Well, there was something, I will say this, because we are streaming right now. I haven't had a chance to say this. So you guys recognize I sent out a message to the men and asked for assistance to the assembly for the bills that needed to be covered. And I just wanted to say thank you to those that are sitting in this room right now who gave toward that, and to those that are not here but gave online. And so I just wanted to express my thanks to all of you. People have been giving tithes and offerings and alms. And I just want to say praise Yah for that. It has totally turned everything around. And so we were able to pay those bills. And by all accounts, it looks like we'll be able to pay our bills on the 1st, like we should again, coming up. And so I just want to say thank you guys again for all of that. And just, the Father hears. And again, he does answer. And we are a part of those answers, right? When he commands tithing, and he says, and then make sure you're giving to those that are in need. This is his provision. This is a way of him providing, right? And the sacrifices that were being done, and it was a way for him to feed the priesthood, right? There was all kinds of things that are often overlooked through a more simplistic reading of the word, and then you begin to dig in. It's like, why were these priests eating of this stuff? It's like, well, this was sustenance for them. And then there's things that you end up with when you kill a sheep. You guys realize one of the byproducts is a hide? There's a hide. Who's that belong to? It belongs to the priesthood. Well, what are they going to do? They're going to eat it? No, they're not going to eat it. They're going to tan it, and they're going to turn it into something of value, and they're going to sell it in the marketplace. Also, they get money for what they're sacrificing. Yeah, there would be a provision for them, because they're going to need to buy, clogs for their children or whatever. Do you have something you want to say, Daniel?
A lot of what this might have gone for Torah scrolls.
Yes. But all of this is important and valuable and needful, right? Every bit of it. And so it's just an interesting thing that the Father has made a way of provision for all of that we have need of. But I'll just tell you, you can sacrifice goats, and there's nothing nicer than a pair of goat gloves, right? They're soft and tender on my hands. I do like them. They tear easy, but they're really nice. So yes, there's provision that the Father has commanded. And so whenever he instituted the priesthood, he said, look, the first of everything belongs to me. The tenth of everything comes from the land belongs to me, and I choose to give it to them. And then this is provision. This is how it works. So he's thinking, he's thoughtful, and then he's a provider, right? He's just this provider. And so many people say, well, shouldn't he just give us everything we need? Well, no, there's work involved, right? Like, he's expecting you to do something in exchange for. So the Levites, they did not get an inheritance of the land. And so you're like, oh, so they don't even work the land, right? Well, no, they work really hard, right? They're the ones who are doing all those sacrifices and teaching and going about and doing justice and taking care of all those things. Like, okay, so they have to work really hard, but these other people, they just get an inheritance of the land. It just comes to them. No, those other tribes, they're out there. They're walking with their animals. They're making sure they have grass, right? They're fighting off the wolves. Like, no one's getting a free lunch. Yeah, everybody eats, right? And we all need one another for all this to work. And then it's like, well, I don't need you. I can raise my own sheep. Yes. But when the enemy comes at the door, you're going to want them to come and have your back. and vice versa, right? And then you may have a bad year, right? There are times here in America when crops fail down south or flood up north or vice versa. And you will see trucks crossing the nation with hay to provide nutrients to the animals in another part of the country. Can you imagine if they just refused? Right? Like, no, we're keeping everything for our own. Well, it wouldn't last very long, right? Because then you're going to end up with your own drought or your own catastrophe, and they're not going to repay you, or they will repay you the way you paid them. Let's put it that way. So this is the same here. The Father has a way of providing for all of us. And I'm just grateful that you guys have stepped up and took this to heart and helped us in ever so many ways. All right, let's move on. So we are covering the wisdom of the Father. We're going through the book of Proverbs. Last Shabbat, we were at chapter 17, verse 15, and we got all the way through that verse. It was a good verse. Today we're going to move a little faster. We're going to start off by reading 5 verses all at once. So this is 5 times as fast if we don't get anywhere beyond this, okay? Who would like to read for me in Proverbs 17, verses 16 through 21? Daniel? Benjamin, you might need to turn that mic on. So chapter 17, verses 16 to 21.
All right, it's got me. Okay. Why is this a price in the hand of a fool to buy wisdom, when there is no heart? A friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for adversity. A man lacking heart shakes hands in a pledge. He becomes a guarantor for his friend. He who loves transgression loves strife. He who exalts his door seeks destruction. He who has a crooked heart finds no good, and he who has a perverse tongue falls into evil. He who brings forth a fool has sorrow for it, and the father of a fool has no joy.
All right, thank you very much. All right, so there's quite a mouthful here. Verses 16 to 21, as he was reading that. Did anything jump out at you guys? You know, I was saying verse 18, it says a man void of understanding striketh hands. Is really what they're saying is weak-minded people tend to get into physical fights. You ever get into a discussion with someone and you realize they're not getting it, and their anger is rising up. Next thing you know, they want to throw hands, right? It's like, no, we don't. It doesn't have to go there. It's like they're affronted and they're not quite sure how to handle it in any way except for fighting. And so that's a weak-minded person, right? A weak-minded person tends to be one who fights, and without reason, without purpose. Okay. Anything else you guys notice in here?
I think it's also saying that the man lacking heart or weak-minded is doing he's becoming a guarantor, probably co-signing on loans and stuff.
Yeah. So that's the second part of that verse. Yes. Say that again.
Probably the whole verse. He shakes hands in a pledge. Maybe it sounds different in a different translation.
Maybe so. Maybe that. Yes, that's what it sounds like. So you're thinking that the striking of hands is just a handshake? That's interesting. Okay, fair enough.
I'm not certain of that.
That's what the NLT has for verse 18. It says, it's poor judgment to guarantee another person's debt or to put up security for a friend.
Okay. So the Hebrew word is takna, or ta. No, I say that wrong. Taka. It's taka, which there's a number of different meanings here, and smiting is definitely looks like the overall thrust of it. The closest to that would be clap. And so clapping hands you could almost think of as shaking, but everything else is striking or blows or something like that. So yeah, Um,
More like fighting.
does on that? That's yeah. Like I said, that's the first part of the verse. Second part of the verse is still dealing with a man who's void of understanding, right? And so Daniel's point is those who are weak in the mind often will be willing to put up a guarantee of a loan for a friend. And the problem with that is that you can't control your friend's behavior. And often, if you're on the hook, they're less likely to feel like they need to pay their portion. It's not always true, and I'm not saying you should never do this, but you should understand what you're getting yourself into if you do this. It's a real dangerous thing.
Yeah, there's all kinds of warning about that.
There's a lot of warnings against it. There really are. And for good reason. Anything else you guys see here? All the way to verse 21.
Say that in verse 19.
Yep, verse 19.
He loveth transgression or rebellion, that loveth strife. You really see that in today's world, you know?
Yes.
Strife, contention, arguing, fighting. It's like we have people, it's on our TVs, on our YouTube feeds, it's in the news, and it's like they always have a problem. It's like nothing satisfies them. Of course, one of the other verses says, he that has a perverse heart, froward heart, finds no good. And it's like we're seeing these things walked out right before our very eyes. It's human nature. It's amplified because of our technology, but it's before our very eyes. It's like, those who don't like Trump, the guy will never do any good.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's like those who don't like Christianity is we've never done anything good. You know.
Right.
It's like it doesn't matter what happens, and there's jokes about Trump could find a cure to cancer, and suddenly they would want you to die with cancer. I mean, they're just nothing, and it's not just Trump. I use that; it's a very obvious one, easy to see. Trump syndrome, the derangements, whatever. But then it is. You see it in your workplace. There are just people there that no matter what, they want to gripe, they want to argue, they want to fight. What is it? They love rebellion.
Yeah.
That's what's in their heart.
Yeah.
Rebellion. They are bucking. No matter what the system is, you could transplant them to Japan.
Yeah.
A very different culture. And guess what they'll be doing? Bucking the system. Why? Because they love rebellion. And there's no satisfying those people.
Sure. Right.
It's just avoidance is the bad. Avoid them. There's just no. But it's interesting. Is like the more you read the Proverbs, the more it explains the world around you.
This is true. This is true. Well, you guys know that I have you brought him up. I'm just going to share an interesting thing with you about Trump. You know, I've long held that I believe that Trump will become the king of America and in going into the millennial kingdom. It's interesting because we just got through having, there was a meeting at the White House. It was just held, I guess it was this week, but I think it was like maybe Thursday or Friday. At that meeting, there was a lot of media, a lot of wealthy people, and there was a lady there who's, I guess she's somewhat crippled, but very rich, very wealthy. And she'd said to Donald Trump, if you will run for your third term, I will give you $250 million toward your campaign if you run under the legal understanding of Alan Dershowitz. Okay, it's just interesting because you know what will happen if he does? Everyone in America will be proclaiming him to be a king. And then you're going to see no king protest everywhere. By implication, they will be declaring him a king, which is really interesting. And so that will be that would be year 2028, right? And so that third term, if it kicked off, would begin in the year 2029, and that's a 4-year term. And so he would remain in the office until the year 2033, January 2033. You guys realize I believe that the Father's returning in that time frame. I just find it very interesting. I really do find it very interesting. And $250 million, that's $250 million. And a presidential election, the whole campaign can generally be done for $1 billion or less. And so she's just committed to fronting 25% of that. I do believe that these things are starting to come to pass. And we'll see. We'll absolutely see. It's an interesting legal theory that I think has weight, and I will promise you, if it happens, there will be many people who are violently opposed to it as well. And I just think that the Father has his way. It doesn't really matter. He will raise those up who he wishes to raise up, and he'll bring them down who he wishes to bring down. But anyway, I just that really wasn't part of this sermon, but it was just such an interesting thing. I actually just seen that today. I hadn't even seen it until this morning, and I was like, wow, that's momentous. Go ahead.
Whether or not he will, time will tell, but it is interesting that at the same time all this is happening, you have the behavior of the biggest European countries, the EU organization itself, NATO itself, its leadership, that they are defying every conceivable aspect of a democracy. Avoiding, lying, rejecting, denying the will of the people, striving in things that the people are literally voting against but can't win, are marching in the streets. We're talking 1 million at a time in these capitals, saying they do not want to go to war with Russia. They do not want, there's a list of things.
Right.
And all of these leaders are doing it anyway, doing whatever they want to do. So what's been really been in the news lately is that these protesters and the organizations are saying democracy's dead. Many of your non-liberal media are saying the exact, it's like it's everywhere. Democracy's totally dead.
Yeah.
They're like, it's dead in Britain, it's dead in France, it's dead in Germany, the biggest movers and shakers. Well, if you don't have a democracy, what do you have? Well, you have to have an absolute ruler of some sort.
You do.
And you see that.
Yes.
And we see now just how much in these places like, Minnesota, California, where democracy's been dead for a long time because of the cheating schemes, scams that's been going on, that, again, when you remove the vote of the people, the will of the people, and then you have someone that's in the midst saying and doing what the common man wants, he's literally, they chant for him in nations across the world.
Yeah, right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I just think it's interesting all this is kind of going in that direction. It's like, it's so marred that people are saying, basically, without using the word king, we need a king to step in with great sweeping authority that we can trust to clean up this mess, because we can't do it with voting, because they're cheating so much.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, it is going in that direction, whether it be a dictatorship, or whether it's good, bad, or ugly, it's going in that direction.
Right. So the point he's making is that we're walking away from democratic republic, and all the countries in the world are walking away from the concept of democracies toward a strong man,
Yes.
which is in prophetic ways the way it'll be when he returns, right? Because it says he will be the King of kings. He will be the Lord of lords, right? Over all the earth, which doesn't indicate there's democracies. It indicates lords and kings. And that's why it's important. And so we're just saying we're beginning to see prophetic things line up for this coming, which I think is coming very, very soon. Okay. I'm not going to belabor the point. It's good. Enjoyed it. Let's go to another thing that I seen in verse 19. Verse 19, again, we're in Proverbs chapter 17. Verse 19 speaks of exalting his gate, and he that exalteth his gate seeketh destruction. Does anybody have any insight on that? Because I was looking at it, I thought it was a little odd phrasing, and I wasn't sure what it meant, and began to search it out a little bit. Dustin, what are your thoughts on that?
Kind of makes me think of when you have, like back in the medieval times, they had like the large walls and the castles and stuff. Like you're almost taunting somebody, like somebody's going to come along wanting that challenge and try to tear it down. So you're exalting your gate. You're almost setting yourself up for somebody to come and attack.
So, I think in this case, though, it's not the walls, it's the gate. And so it's actually, I think, almost the exact opposite. And so what it's saying is, go ahead. I want to hear what your thoughts are, Bill.
Well, again, with this translation here,
Sure.
it says, anyone who trusts in high walls invites disaster. Well, where is our trust supposed to be?
In the Most High.
Yeah, not in our walls.
So I'm not sure why it says walls, because this word here is really an opening, a doorway, an entrance. Fair enough. Yeah, I'm just saying, I'm not sure why that translation is indicating a wall.
I'm starting to like it less and less the more I'm reading and studying. And
Fair enough.
I'm getting ready to go back to my good old King James Bible.
So here's what I would say about this. if you go to a wealthy place, they're going to have the largest entrance. Very fancy, wide, big gate, all of that. Almost a ubiquitous thing, right? And when you do this, you have a big gate for show, but guess what? That also allows people to come in very easily, right? And so you can't guard a large opening as well. Yes, it's grand and magnificent, and you may have your name emblazoned across the top and all this stuff, but the interesting thing about a beehive is they usually have small openings. Huge colony behind it, small openings. And everyone in and out, they're going past the guards, right? It's easily guarded. There's a choke point there. And so the thing I'm seeing here is when you exalt your gate, you seek destruction, or you are allowing destruction. So you got to guard the gate to your home, right? And so in all the things you do, watch what comes in and out of your home, because if you open it up and you just make it wide open, your children are going to be exposed to all kinds of filth. They're going to be exposed to all kinds of things. They're going to be people that want to come in and raid you. They're going to snipe your children away from you, your spouse. They're going to come in, sow discord, drop a grenade and walk out. Any number of things. Watch your openings to your home. Dustin, go ahead.
Don't have open borders, got it.
No, what?
No open borders.
No open borders. Yeah, build a wall. There you go. With small, narrow openings. Wasn't the point I was making, but I'll take it. It's good. All right. What else did we see here? Anything else between this and verse 21?
Verse 21.
Go ahead.
That was my life as a child and my life as a parent.
Yeah.
As a child, I was the fool and I was the rebel.
Sure.
And as a parent, my son was the fool and the rebel. But God has a way.
God has a way, yes. And you're here for a reason. He's changed your heart. Hallelujah. Praise Yah. Hey, I know He is. I know He is. Hallelujah. I think it's good stuff. That's really good stuff. All right. Verse 22. Who'd like to read verse 22? Dustin, go ahead.
A rejoicing heart causes good healing, but a stricken spirit drives them out.
All right. Anybody have thoughts on this? Okay, I'll read to you something from the University of Health out of Fort Worth, Texas. They cite the following about laughter and health. Ready? It says, laughter heals the body through a cascade of physiological and psychological changes that promotes overall well-being. When we laugh, the body releases endorphins, which are natural painkillers that enhance mood and provide temporary relief from discomfort. This release of endorphins also contributes to a sense of well-being and can help reduce symptoms of anxiety and depression. Laughter triggers the activation of the parasympathetic nervous system, which counteracts the stress response by lowering heart rates and blood pressure, promoting relaxation. This reduction in the stress hormone, like cortisol and epinephrine, helps mitigate the harmful effects of chronic stress, which is linked to heart disease, diabetes, and other chronic conditions. The physical act of laughing stimulates circulation in your body and increases your oxygen intake, which improves the oxygenation of tissues and supports organ health. This deep breathing during laughing, because you do, right? You're you're deep in and deep out, right? This deep breathing during laughter acts similarly to a light physical exercise, engages the diaphragm, the lungs, the abdominal snowman. Where am I at here? Lost my spot. That was funny. The abdominal muscles, and can even increase your heart rate, right? It's like a real light exercise. And these effects contribute to better cardiovascular health by improving the blood flow, enhancing reducing inflammation markers that predict heart attacks and stroke risk. Laughter has also been shown to improve blood vessel function and increase levels of high-density lipoprotein or HDL cholesterol, often referred to as the good cholesterol. Laughter strengthens the immune system by increasing the production of antibodies and activating the immune cells, such as a natural killer cell, the T cells, and infection-fighting cells, just by laughter. All these things are happening. This improves the resistance to illnesses like colds and flus. This immune-boosting effect is particularly beneficial for older adults whose immune system naturally weakens with age. Additionally, laughter can help break the pain spasm cycle associated with chronic pain and muscle disorders. The relaxation of muscles after a good laugh can last up to 45 minutes, reducing physical tension and promoting comfort. Overall, laughter serves as a natural, safe, and accessible way to support physical health, mental resilience, and emotional balance. These are all good things, all really good things. I went to see a friend of mine this week. He was actually the one that was trying to get the hay delivered, and I was there and I was talking, and you know, I could see he was a little down, and I decided to tell him a joke. And so I said, Andy, I said, did you hear about that woman that got arrested for stealing a bag of apples? He said, no, I didn't hear about that. I said, yeah, stole a bag of 7 apples. He said, really? I said, yeah. I said, she got arrested, had to go before the judge. And I said, the judge said, well, did you do this? And she admitted she did. And he goes, you know, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I think it's very fitting. There's 7 apples. I'm just going to put you in jail 1 day for each of the, you know, the apples that was in the bag. And so you're going to be in jail for 7 days. And about that time, the woman's husband raised his hands in court. He says, Judge, I'd like to say a word. He said, and who are you? He said, I'm her husband. He said, okay, well, would you like to speak on her behalf? He said, yes, sir, I would. He said, I want you to know the day before this happened, she stole a bag of rice. And Andy began to chuckle a little bit, and then all of a sudden the realization really hit. He's like, wait a second. So she's going to have to go to jail every day for every grain of rice. And he's just rolling. He's just rolling. And, you know, you could just see his whole mood improve. Like everything was so much better. And it was good. And then, of course, you know, he immediately thought of a joke he wanted to share with me. And so, you know, it was good, and we were all there with his family, and everyone was laughing, and they needed that. They really needed it. It was good for them. It was good for me too, you know, and now you guys got to hear that joke in a kind of in a reaction way. It was funny. Laughter's good. Laughter's really good. You understand? It's not just good for the soul in the sense that. You know, it makes our bones fat, right? No, it's good for our physical health. And we're blessed to have the mind that can imagine things that make us laugh. All right. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that. I would like to read verse 23. 23 over here, Jobin. Make sure you turn it on before you hand it to him. Thank you. Still not on? Or did we lose? Okay, hang on. Ben got it. Sorry about that, Joey.
It's all right. A wicked man receives a bribe from the bosom to pervert the ways of justice.
A wicked man provides. Say it one more time. A wicked man does what?
A wicked man receives a bribe.
Receives a bribe, yeah.
From the bosom to pervert the ways of justice.
Okay. Any thoughts about this? 10% for the big guy. That's great stuff. Anybody else have any thoughts about this?
Today's world before our eyes.
Today's world before our eyes. That's right. It's true. We see a lot of perversion of justice. It seems to be in many, many places.
Just realize that if people didn't realize that was a Biden thing, they might take that 10% for the big way.
Oh, okay. So yes, fair enough.
Yeah.
So the joke was 10% for the big guy, not meaning the Father in heaven above. This was reference to emails that were sent where Joe Biden was getting 10% of the grift. So that's pretty funny. Benjamin, do you mind checking the air and making sure that's not too high? It seems like that's putting out more heat than we need. Something less. I'm not sure where it's at, but this is. I think it's plenty warm in here. Wouldn't you all say? Yes. Okay. Go ahead. Yes. Yep. Right.
They have the office, they have the title, they have the job, they have the cash or the salary. Are they going to do it?
Yes.
And that really stood out. We was watching one of our favorite Bible teachers here not too long ago, and he went to Egypt to look at a certain tomb that had been closed off. It's no longer visited by the public. But because he lives in the Middle East, he's an American, but he lives in the Middle East. He said, all of Egypt or the Middle East is this way. He's like, he had the camera running, but it was pointing at the feet, and you could hear him talking to the men. He's giving them money. He's like, they won't do anything without money. He said, but if you offer them a little bit of money, they'll let you in. And he offered them money, and they let him right in, and they gave him like 20 minutes. So, and he was like able to go into this, ancient tomb with him and his boy and their cameras, and it was like, it just, to me, it was like right in front of your face. It was like, that's where we're heading if Trump's correction doesn't get, all the way through the country. It's like we have to pay people off in one way or the other. I'm not saying I pay people, but I'm saying we got so many government officials that are just not doing the job, and that is a really bad sign because they're willing to be paid to do bad, and to even do the job, they got to pay them. It's like, all right, it's got to go. That's rot.
It is. It is. I've seen this in the county planning where you go before them, you ask for permission to do something with your land, and they ask, well, what have you done for the community? Like, what do you mean? And they're like, well, we're just curious to know what would you do for the community, or what have you done? And it begins to be one of those things where I am implicitly asking you for a bribe. And not direct in the terms of cash to me, but you need to fund a park or something that, it's another form of grift. But years ago, I went to work at UPS, and this was many years ago because I was quite young. And one of the things that they shared was when they decided to go into Mexico, expand their operations there, they were informed by the team that went out to determine, they spied out the land, as it were, right? And they came back to the people at UPS and said, yeah, there's a huge market, and you're going to have to just pay off the local, thugs, and you're going to do great, right? There's tons of business to be had down here. And they're like, well, hang on a second. What do you mean? They said, well, it's kind of common practice. All the carriers who are down in Mexico, they have to, you have to continue to pay off the local drug lords and crime lords. And if you don't, they will stop your trucks and burn them, and your packages won't go anywhere. And UPS was really proud of this, and I honestly think they should be. They moved into Mexico, and they refused to pay any bribes. Their competition was paying bribes all the time, and all their packages were flowing. But the moment they stopped paying, their trucks would be burnt and everything and UPSs were not doing it. And they came in, and their trucks started getting burned. And they said, we refuse to pay. And they sent in more trucks, more packages. And their trucks would get burned. And then they said, well, you got to pay. Or, we refuse to pay. And they sent in more trucks. Finally, the guys are like, they're just never going to pay. Just leave them, let them go. UPS travels all over Mexico. They do not pay the bribes, and nobody messes with their trucks because they know they won't. And so my point is this. If you're willing to give in to the bribes, you cause more bribes to have to be done, right? If you take a stand for what is right, eventually it comes to an end. Yes, you're going to face persecution. You're going to face the hard things. People are going to not like you. But at some point, they're going to be like, okay, there's no point. They're not going to be like us. They refuse to be evil. Just let them be. Just let them be. And so I just see this in the scripture where they're talking about the evil people. They allow bribes to pervert justice. Yeah, we shouldn't do that. We should never do it. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, after the riots of '67,
Yeah.
over there in Newark, my dad was rebuilding the store, and it took heavy bribery to get past the government officials and that to be able to continue on all the work and get all the work done on the store.
Yeah, the ones who are there to take care of us, and instead you're having to bribe them to get permits and everything else. It's crazy. Go ahead.
Clarification, I really don't remember if the Egyptian officials told him they couldn't go in without a bribe or what, but I just remember his comment saying he accepted it, that it was standard practice in Egypt and the Middle East was that if you want them to do what they're supposed to do, they're going to demand money.
Right.
So I really don't remember how it began, but I just remember him giving in and doing it, and they had access for, like I said, about 20 minutes in this old tune. But anyways, I just thought it was interesting.
So what he said was that there was always somebody who knew somebody who knew somebody that had or knew something. And he was like, we have to find one of those somebodies. And he eventually found it, which was a storekeeper of some sort.
Right.
And like Dad said, he bribed him to go tell his friend, to let these people in there for 20 minutes or something. You know?
Right.
And they followed along and they got it. Going to this really cool cave.
Right.
Or tomb. But
All that talk about Egypt reminds me of the guy who went to get a degree at college, Egyptology, of all things, Egyptology. And when he got done getting his degree, he went out to get a job and realized there's no Egyptology jobs out there. He's like, what do you do? So he went back and got his PhD so that he could teach Egyptology to other students, making this truly the pyramid scheme of Egyptology. I just thought that was great. See, don't you guys feel better? A little laughter here. All right, it's good stuff. Good stuff. How about verses 24 to 28? We'll wrap up this chapter.
The earth. A foolish son is a grief to his father, and a bitterness to her that bare him. Also, to punish the just is not good, nor to strike princes for equity. He that hath knowledge spareth his words, and a man of understanding is of an excellent spirit. Even a fool, when he hath holdeth his peace, is counted wise, and he that shutteth his lips is esteemed a man of understanding.
What does this say to you guys?
Before you speak.
Think before you speak? Yeah, I agree.
Say less.
Say less. Yeah. And to me, verses 27, 28 means to err on the side of not speaking, right? And that those who feel inclined to speak all the time, nonstop, you're exposing yourself to be thought of as a fool. When you're always speaking, you're not learning, you're not listening, and so your level of understanding is not going to gain because you're not giving others a chance to speak. You can, if you're the one speaking, you're either teaching or just filling a void, but you're not learning, right? And so if you're lacking in understanding, the best thing to do is just be quiet and listen, and perhaps someone with understanding will speak up. Okay? Any other thoughts, Bill?
I received this wisdom as a, I guess, junior high school up there during the summertime at my dad's store.
Yeah.
And it's old lineup. And he said it's best to be thought a fool than to speak up and remove all doubt.
Right.
Same thing.
Absolutely. Better to be thought a fool than to open your mouth and remove all doubt. Good stuff, Bill. Very good.
Remember that to this day.
Right. That is awesome.
I don't know. I just get I'm just getting flashbacks of some of these politicians, especially some of the Democrats that are out there, and they're just talking and talking, and you're just like, wow, I can't believe their leadership, like what's coming out of their mouth, and they're giving their opinions. It's just like blown away. I mean, what was that? Hank Johnson guy? That one politician, I forgot what state, but he's that same guy that thought that the island of Guam would tip over if
Too many military
yeah,
around.
yeah,
Yeah,
too many,
that was terrible, wasn't it?
yeah. I
want to
just
go
get,
to sea.
huh?
I want to go to Guam and see.
Oh, well, it's on YouTube. You can at least listen.
Spoken in sincerity, too. Yeah, that was the... Yeah. Yeah, it's some crazy stuff. I agree. You know, when you try to speak against those who have understanding, you very quickly are made out to be a fool, right? You can't compare, and that's what it was going on right there. I remember that general looking at him like, "Are you seriously asking this question?"
I was just watching Fletch lately.
Okay.
So, he was always coming up with lies. And then every time he'd come up with that, someone would question what he just said. And then he'd come up with another lie that even sounded worse than the first one. You're just like, man, this is pure comedy.
Digging a hole.
Yeah, he was looking at some engine and he was just saying all sorts of weird stuff on how to fix it. And then everybody was like blown away with what he was saying to actual mechanics. So.
Right? Oh, that's funny.
That, there are people, and speaking of politicians,
Yeah.
also, you see this in education, and you see this probably at every job you've ever had. There's just some people that just, for lack of a better term, they just like to hear themselves talk, hear themselves speak. They always got a lot to say, but that doesn't mean they say a lot.
Yep.
You know, and, but it says here that a man of knowledge will spare his words, and I know that this could be applied in multiple directions, but one of the things is that the more you learn about something, if it's complex, the more you realize there's different ways of seeing it, there's different ways of viewing it, like the scriptures. You can tell a lot of people that maybe they're studying lax, or they're new to it, or they just haven't applied themselves, because they have a whole lot to say about it as if it's the absolute truth, but yet, they're generally running off their own translation, whichever one it is. Little to no Greek or Hebrew, little to no cross-reference. They're just, just blah, 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 and it's like, you can tell, it's like they've got way too much to say about this. Because when you dig into these verses, a lot of times, there are many ways, or at least multiple ways, that it can be seen.
Yeah.
Multiple ways it can be used, And you notice that about humans, that the more we learn about something, especially, when it's complex or it's grand in size, you slow down on those words. Because, like you said earlier, you open yourself up, you start realizing, well, this could be taken more than one way. This has other possibilities. This may be the norm, but yet there's some strong B's and C views
Sure.
on this too. And the ones that just blah blah blah, but it's like, I was like, we're looking at pride on display. Are we dealing with willful ignorance? It's like way too many words. And the other, I thought I heard somebody say something. And then the other one is, and a man of understanding is of an excellent spirit. It could also be said, a man that really knows his stuff is of a clear spirit. And when you're listening, and I love listening to people on a subject that they really, really understand. A couple different people in history of the last 100 years have made this similar comment that if you cannot take the complex that you're studying and say it in simple terms, you don't really know it yet. You don't really understand it. And that's a man of an excellent spirit. He's a very concise, clear, he knows the subject.
Yep.
His words may still be spared, but when he does speak, it's going to be clear.
Right.
I tried to watch a video here recently, and the guy was rambling so much. It's just like, when you look at the comments, that's what everybody was saying. It's like, this guy was a waste of my time. Disorganized, rambling. It's like, this guy didn't know what he was talking about. And that stands out when you start to dig into subjects, whether it be mechanical, biblical, whatever.
Right.
There's a whole lot of rambling in this world. It's like, I'd rather just find that guy who can say it in a few minutes, concise. Don't waste 30 minutes of my time driving listening to you talk.
Yeah.
I think you like I think you like hearing yourself. You've got a mirror in front of your mic. It's like, what's going on here? So, anyway, I thought I would kind of point that out there.
Exactly. That's good. That is good. All right. Who'd like to read chapter 18? Seth, you want to read this one, verses 1 and 2? Grayson's bringing you a microphone. Chapter 18, verse 1 and 2. It's working.
He who separates himself seeks his own desire. He who quarrels against all wisdom. A fool does not delight in understanding, but only in revealing his own mind. When a wicked...
Okay. Tell you what. Did you guys hear that? Read that one more time if you don't mind, Seth. I'd appreciate that.
He who separates himself seeks his own desire. He who quarrels against all wisdom. A fool does not delight in understanding, but only in revealing his own mind.
Okay. Any thoughts here, guys? It's kind of a challenge in the way it's worded, but what do you...
We were just talking about that.
Yeah.
I mean, they only want to air their own opinions. Well, that's NLT. Sorry, guys.
Fair enough.
I gotta bring my steam.
I have some question about the translation. This is a verse that I've had trouble with in the past, but taking it at face value, what we're saying here, it definitely, in today's world, would be what we call an echo chamber.
Yeah.
They want to only be
Yeah.
around those who are echoing what their commonly held beliefs, which almost as sure as the world is round, that the chamber includes a lot of lashing out at those who don't already hold those views.
Yeah.
It's not the kind of place that you would go to learn. You would go to combatively speak against those who don't already hold that, as you continue to agree with one another on things that that's in that little echo.
Yes.
And it's dangerous to get into those because of the hostility it seems to breed against other views at the expense of open-mindedness, consideration, and pondering different views. They just get in there and they don't just pat each other on the back or just assure one another, yes, we are right, but it tends to also include lashing out at other people and wishing ill upon others, whether it be mockery or calls like Antifa, calls for violence.
Yes.
It's those circles. And those who live in those circles are the ones who generally surface in the news because they've done something horrific to others.
So very true. Oftentimes people are not seeking truth. They're seeking validation. They just want someone to agree with what they have spouted. And oftentimes what they're spouting is not even something they thought of. It's something they heard from their puppet master. And so when they espouse that thing, they're expecting everyone to agree with them because, they're playing a role. And a wise person will seek the other side, right? What is the argument? How am I in opposition to this other person? And if I am in opposition, who's right? Right? A wise person will consider positions contrary to their own. And as I began to study the Bible and dig deeply into all the things that have brought me to where I'm at today, I began to find myself doing web searches. And my wording would be the exact opposite of what I believed, right? So that I could find people who would be preaching sermons who would say the exact opposite of what I was seeing in the Word of God, right? And so, give you an example, it's like that grace is, we just have to embrace grace and then we're saved. And so I would seek out sermons that would promote those thoughts, that to say that the law has been done away with. Yes, show me how the law was done away with. Give me that passionate, sermon that you think proves that we no longer have to obey God. And I will listen. I will listen for hours on ends to pastors who would promote the exact opposite. And every verse they cite, I'm studying. Everything they would say, I'm considering. Like, how does that gel with what I understand in the Word of God? And you would think, well, didn't that just tear down your belief? No, it strengthens it. It establishes, you begin to remove their best arguments, don't begin to touch truth, right? You cannot move this rock because it's the rock. And you are the shifting sand. And you go in and you go out and you're gone, right? And so what remains is the truth. And when you test it against the greatest storms of the evil one, and it still stands, you're like, yeah, this is truth. This is the truth. And so this is why I love testing things. I really do. Because if you're willing to go there, you're willing to ask the question and say, I don't understand. I recognize that I'm admitting my ignorance right now. I want to understand the truth. And this is what I told the Father when I came to this. I said, Father, I don't care what the truth is. I want you to reveal that to me. I want to know the truth, and I will embrace it, whatever your truth is. And it was on the basis of that humility that he began to reveal to me what we are doing and believing right now today. Because I didn't care. I just wanted to be in line with him, right? I wasn't trying to promote my belief. I said, Father, whatever the truth is, I'm there for it. And we were going, back and forth with Galatians at the time, trying to understand. And I was in great debate with my father, trying to understand. And it was through that he began to say, revealed to me I needed to pray and fast, because I was that serious about it. And so then I began to pray and fast, not just praying. And all of a sudden things began to be very clear. And so test everything. Don't seek an echo chamber, right? And, there's times when it's nice to be around people that you agree with. I'm not saying never engage with those that, are your friends that also agree with things. It can be uplifting to hear that battle cry of all your fellow believers. But if you're looking to test something, find those who would be in opposition to you. Let it be tested. Then if you find out that you're like, hey, I think I'm off base here. If you're then beginning to think the other direction, now you have to go into the opposition of that position, right? If you say, okay, no, I see that I was wrong before, and now I'm embracing this idea. Now I'm over here, now I need to test it this other direction, right? So if you test everything in both directions, whatever it is you believe, or come to believe, eventually you'll come to the truth. You'll come to the truth. Pray, fast, let the Spirit work on you. Hallelujah.
Liberal media from time to time.
Yeah, I believe it. Yes.
Opposition research.
Opposition research. There you go. Very good. What verse was that we just read? 1 and 2. I don't know if we have time to read verse 3. Excuse me.
I just had a comment about that.
Pardon?
I had a comment about one.
Go ahead. Verse 1.
So it's similar to what you're saying, but the subject is an object. So someone is going to leave sound wisdom because they want to run after something that they're an object that's going to meet their desire, and that's why they're separating themselves from this wisdom. So they're not trying to prove anything. They're desiring something that wisdom's saying don't go after, and they want that. So they're leaving that wisdom, separating themselves so they
To achieve their own desire.
or they can obtain the
Sure.
and that's where it's
Walk
dangerous.
away from wisdom so that you can fulfill your own desire. Okay. Good. Go ahead.
I was going to quickly read a couple of other translations from of that verse. It says, this is HNV. Yes, thank you. An unfriendly man pursues selfishness and defies all sound knowledge. And then this is a Darby, I'm not really sure, but DBY. He that separates himself seeketh his pleasure. He is vehement against all sound wisdom. Again, it just sounds like today's the political circus that we live in. You know, with all the different echo groups or whatnot, is that isolation, it's their own pleasure, it's their own desire, and they're vehement, they're lashing out,
Right.
whatever, in opposition of all sound wisdom. Which is interesting because if you watch any debates, which is, you know, one of the things that Charlie did that, you know, cost him his life was the fact that he was constantly calling for people of opposing views
Right.
to set aside the emotions and the vehemence and speak about them openly, without begrudgingly and fighting, just kind of, I believe, A, B, and C.
Right.
And I'm against X, Y, and Z. And then allow people, which, you know, a midrash, so to speak, you know, like, speak your mind and let someone else be free to agree or disagree without it being personal.
Right.
And coming against them. And it's interesting, if you've ever watched any of his, I'm sure all of us in this room watched at least one or two, it's just interesting. The ones that were in these echo chambers are the ones who stood out all the time, who could not do it. All they could do was lash out at the microphone at either Charlie and or Christianity, white people, you know, whatever was their hatred was aimed at. It was, and almost no amount of his attempts could unravel that. They would come and say and do, put on a performance, you know, act out, be stupid and childish, and then storm off. There was a few times that I saw that they kind of, I didn't see it that way. It was like, oh my gosh, he's broken through some gates there. It's like, you know, you're amazed because the norm was this right here. In one way or another, lashing out, and no amount of wisdom or common sense or, you know, 1 + 1 = 2 could reach them. And they would just, again, spout out insults and then march off. It was just like, wow, how true this verse is. How true, you know? How true.
It's a very important thing is to ask yourself as you are being surrounded by people, friends, and fellow believers, if the thing that you are hearing is just emotional and not logical, where is the logic, right? Because you can find yourself wrapped up in an emotional response that's not rooted in logic. And so everything, I don't care who you're with, when they say, there's this issue, and we need to feel angry about it or passionate. We got to have this thing or whatever. Like, okay, where's the logic behind the emotion, right? Emotion is good. Emotion drives us, and I endorse it when it is built upon logic. Go ahead, Dustin.
I agree with what Gabe was saying, though. The Septuagint words it this way: a man who wishes to separate from friends seeks excuses, but at all times he will be liable to reproach. So I think that the driving point is that when you're breaking away from that wisdom because you're seeking your own desire, which kind of goes with verse 2, because verse 2 says, fool does not delight in understanding, but in uncovering his own heart, or going after his own folly. He's wishing to do his own desire rather than seek the wisdom that has been provided by the counsel or friends or anybody that's around him. He's like, no, I'm not going to do that. I want to do this, and this is what I'm going to do.
Right. Yep.
That's the way that I see it.
Very good. Go ahead.
Yeah, it just kind of, I try to do some self-reflection. I had this one guy that worked for me. We both got in about the same time, and this one out in Colorado. And I was trying to help him out. He had some personal stuff going on, and I would help him out. Funny thing is, I would always hear him complain why he didn't get promoted. He was just always bad mouthing his supervisors, and I'd be like, okay, didn't think much of it. But I would just, I would always hear him say that, just complaining about them. And then when we finally deployed together, I could see why, he did get promoted, because he was just so abrasive when you would correct him on things. It was just like pointing the finger back at you. And I was just like, well, I guess I'll be one of those supervisors on his next discussion with his next supervisor. So I just wonder sometimes if people like that will take a step back and go like, okay, why isn't things going my way? Is there something, am I doing why I'm not progressing? So I don't know. I just wonder if people like that ever self-reflect.
I think it's difficult for many people to self-reflect. I really do. And they don't take the input of others, and they want to push back immediately. But it's a sign of a wise person who is able to humbly accept correction, right? Like, okay, so you see me in this way, and I don't see myself in that way. Maybe others see me in this way also. Is this something that I need to make a change or address? The one who is refusing to acknowledge that they are seen that way, well, guess what? They're just unable then to see how they're perceived, right? And so you may say, well, in my heart, I'm not angry, but everyone tells you, why are you so angry? You're like, well, I'm not angry. You're like, okay, why do they all think you're angry, right? Maybe there's something that you haven't, realized about yourself. And if you're truly not, then maybe you need to figure out how to present yourself in a way that is well received by others. And so, I love machining and all this stuff. And I just got through watching a short video, and it was a machinist, and he said, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone. We've hit 100,000 subs, and thank you. And he said, but I remember when we first started this, I went to another machinist that had already kind of achieved the success we were wanting, and their number one advice to us was read the comments, because the feedback you get in the comments will be honest, and they will help you to succeed. And he said, and so we began to do that. We began to read the comments. He said, man, we were like, people had all kinds of things they were seeing that we were doing wrong. We didn't know. We thought we were doing all this stuff really well, and they were critiquing everything from how we were machining, which he said, which is great, because I've learned so much about machining from you guys, to how poor our camera work was and audio, and we've improved all those things. And we would not be the success that we are today if we hadn't listened to the feedback. And when you begin to open yourself up to criticism, honest criticism, right? You begin to take it honestly. You allow yourself to improve, right? When you refuse criticism, you can't improve, right? You've already established that you're good enough. You don't need to hear their feedback. And so I just find that people who accept that, they do self-reflection, those are the ones that tend to succeed, get promoted, as opposed to not being promoted, right? It's over and over. It happens that way. And those who can accept responsibility for their own failures, those are the ones that are promoted. Those who always see others as the problem, they're not the ones that get promoted, right? It's just a real fact of the matter. Any other final thoughts? Okay. We're just going to stop it here. This has been good. If you guys do, let's just bow our heads and pray. Father, thank you so much for your blessings, all the kindness that you have given us today, and allowing us to read your word and hear wisdom being shared from so many different voices today. I thank you for that. I thank you for the love that I feel from each of the people here today as we are binding ourselves together with cords that cannot be broken. We are truly your body, Father, and we seek to do your will in all the things that we do and say. I love you and I praise your name, Yeshua. Hallelujah and amen. All right, good stuff. Good stuff. All right, thank you. You can turn that off. We're going to take some prayer requests. And so